The sinister secrets of a haunted baby's post-mortem photo revealed. A terrifying discovery. 1891. Sarah Hudson stood in the dim light of her attic, a single candle flickering in the gloom. It was an ordinary afternoon in Willow Creek, but a shroud of despair cloaked her. She rummaged through old boxes, her heart heavy with each movement. Then, her fingers grazed something cold and delicate. With a trembling hand, she pulled out a post-mortem photograph of her darling son, Isaac. A gasp echoed in her throat as the image burned into her mind, a lifeless body wrapped in death's embrace. The room grew even colder, shadows deepening into jagged shapes. Only then did she notice it, a dark silhouette lurking in the corners of the photo, an ominous presence that seemed to stalk the baby's small form. With a jolt, she realized it bore an uncanny resemblance to Dr. Bates, the town's revered yet inscrutable physician. Panic surged within her. Had she summoned a specter from the grave? As evening descended, eerie whispers slithered through the cracks in her home. They echoed her son's name, beckoning her towards the depths of the town's secrets. Secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to uncover. Her nights transformed into restless torment, dreamscapes thick with phantoms. Isaac's ghost materialized, innocent and pleading, leading her toward the rotting structure of Bates' clinic, the site of whispered rumors and forgotten scandals. A chill ran down her spine at the thought of the cellar, hidden beneath layers of time, a place tainted by darkness where spirits whispered their terrible confessions. Glimmers of hope shattered her resolve as she approached her neighbors. They were well-meaning, though their laughter now felt hollow. Tensions simmered beneath the surface as she pieced together a story of vanished children, lives silently whispered away in the dead of night. Each chat with a neighbor dripped with a palpable dread, a shared guilt that felt like a noose tightening around her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With every heartbeat, Sarah felt time drain away. Frantic, she turned to Sheriff Daniels, a figure formerly emblematic of civility, now cloaked in shadows. The sheriff's eyes sparkled with suppressed fears. Confusion twisted into lines on his face as he trembled beneath the weight of unspeakable truths. "It runs deeper than you think, Sarah," he murmured, voice barely above a whisper. The townsfolk, her friends, were intertwined with Dr. Bates' dark legacy. The storm hit the next evening, winds howling like anguished spirits. It called to her, tempting and terrifying. With courage stitched from desperation, Sarah slipped into the clinic's cellar, bones creaking as she descended. The air grew thick, cold sweat clinging to her skin. Ancient relics scattered before her, unspeakable horrors from lives unclaimed. The laughter of her son fractured into a cry of despair, reverberating through the chilling darkness. In this moment, dread coiled in her stomach. What would she uncover here? Was she ready to confront the truth, or would she unravel deeper nightmares? The night stretched into eternity, full of terrors yet revealed, leaving Sarah poised on the brink of discovery, heart racing as she faced the darkest shadows of her past. The shadows twisted around Sarah as she stepped deeper into the cellar. The damp air thickened her breath, and her heart thudded relentlessly against her ribcage. Flickering light from her candle cast grotesque shapes on the stone walls, faces of long-gone souls trapped in torment, silent witnesses to horrors she dared not imagine. She hesitated, the icy fingers of fear clutching at her spine. The darkness was almost alive, pulsing with the energy of past tragedies. A faint, mocking giggle echoed from the depths, reminiscent of her son's laughter twisted into something sinister. "Isaac," she called, voice quivering and barely afloat in the silence. No response, just the shuffling of unseen feet in the shadows. With shaking hands, Sarah brushed away cobwebs and dust that clung to old wooden crates. Each creak and groan of the cellar felt as though it were warning her to turn back, to abandon the quest for answers. But those same urges turned against her. The motivation of a mother lost was stronger than her fears. She clawed at the lid of the nearest crate and opened it, revealing dusty funeral wreaths with decay-encrusted flowers, remnants of lives extinguished too soon. A sudden rush of wind blew through the cellar, extinguishing her candle and plunging her into darkness. Panic surged as instinct took over. She fumbled in the pitch black, desperately searching for the matches in her pocket. They felt like stones against her trembling fingers. The breath of the dead brushed against her skin, whispering an entreaty, urging her to leave, to flee. "Enough!" she shouted into the void. "I will find the truth." The determination in her voice hung in the air, only to be swallowed by the oppressive silence. Finally managing to light another match, she caught a fleeting glimpse of grim outlines. Faces, dozens of them, mouths open in silent screams, dozens of eyes wide with horror. The photos, the faces, all lost children. A dawning realization gripped her throat, choking her. Dr. Bates had issued the final diagnosis, but what of the stories? What had he hidden beneath the mask of respectability? As she moved slowly through the relics, her pulse quickened at the thought that answers lay here, buried, left to rot like the rotten wood encasing her. A sudden noise, a soft thud behind her made her freeze. It echoed through the loneliness, reverberating into the corners where shadows conspired. "Who is there?" she called, the tremor unmistakable in her voice. Silence lingered longer than it should have. Then, out of the murk, a figure stepped forward, pale and gaunt, bathed in an otherworldly shimmer. The resemblance to Dr. Bates was unmistakable, but there was something horribly distorted about his features. "You shouldn't be here, Sarah," he rasped, voice like ice scraping stone. The flickering match lit up the man's eyes, black, bottomless voids. Anticipation gripped her as terror gripped her heart. What had she awakened? What truth loomed, hungry for her discovery? "Leave now," he warned, a sinister smile creeping across his chapped lips. "This place will claim you, as it did the others," and just like that, the match burned out. Darkness enveloped her once more, and as she knelt, dread swelled. Would she become another lost soul in this macabre tapestry of secrets? Fear clawed at her throat, unrelenting. But deep inside, she felt something different awaken, anger ignited in her chest. "No," she whispered fiercely. "I will not let this end here." With defiance parsing through her soul, Sarah's eyes sought a way forward through the depths of the cellar. There had to be more. She had to find out what happened to the children and what Dr. Bates truly desired. As she pressed forward, she could feel an oppressive energy gathering, as though the cellar itself had awakened, rebelling against its secrets being unearthed. Sarah knew she had crossed a threshold. The truth awaited her, cloaked in shadows, but would it free her from her nightmares, or drag her deeper into the abyss? The walls seemed to pulse, shadows looming closer, whispers weaving a soundscape of warning. An invitation. Sarah's breath quickened. What next horrific twist awaited her in the dark? And who else might be watching from their own coffin of despair? The deeper she went, the less she felt in control, and the more she understood truth could be more dreadful than any curse. What else lay hidden in the darkness, waiting to claim her? The air thickened as Sarah's resolve steeled against the darkness. The shadows seemed to scramble and quake at her determination, but she could feel them pressing in, hungry, waiting for her to falter. Her hand was slick with sweat as she fumbled for a new match. She lit it quickly, the small flame flickering wildly, casting long, frenzied shadows across the floor. With a quick breath, she turned her attention back to the figure before her. Dr. Bates, no longer a man of science, but a specter tethered to this damned place. She took a step forward. "What did you do?" The words poured from her lips, heavy like stones carrying the weight of despair. "Only what was necessary," he replied, the smile on his lips stretching too wide, revealing yellowed teeth. The truth is never pretty, Sarah, and here, it is never meant to be found. As the match burned closer to her fingertips, she caught sight of the cellar's walls, a graveyard of regrets, each whisper rising from the cracks in the stones. The children, they were innocent. You were supposed to heal them, not. Her voice cracked. Not turn them into this. Dr. Bates chuckled, the sound grating and hollow. Innocence? Such a fragile illusion. Their cries fed this place, gave it power. My work was never to heal, it was to harness. He stepped back, fading into the shadows, the light dimming as he vanished from sight. Sarah's heart raced. She felt the weight of the truth compressing her chest. It wasn't just about Isaac anymore. It was about the countless souls lost in this abyss, their cries lingering like an infection in the dark. Realization washed over her coldly. You wanted to torment them, to rule over their pain. From the shadows, a chorus of whispers rose, voices of the lost, blending into a dissonant symphony of wails. Their grief wrapped around her, pulling her backward toward the depth of despair from which they'd never escaped. Instinctively, she recoiled, but the shadows pressed in closer, twisting like anguished serpents. Join us, the voices beckoned, their tones weaving through the decay, familiar yet chilling. They spoke of freedom and horror, of truths and unbearable revelations. Join us, Sarah, no, she shouted defiantly, bunching her fists. I will uncover the truth. With another match lit, she carried the flickering flame toward the far corner of the cellar, where the walls were too black. Shadows pooled, jostling for attention. The moment the light touched them, they twitched, shrieked, and lashed out, as if the reveal burned them. What lay behind those shadows? Caskets? Another layer of secrets? Sarah Leave, Dr. Bates' disembodied voice echoed again, but this time with a new urgency. You do not want what is down there, ignoring him. Sarah pressed forward, every muscle tense, her heart thumping like a drum. She reached the corner, heart racing as she found an old, gnarled door, its surface marred with the make of countless scratch marks. The whispers escalated. Please, don't leave us. With trembling hands, she grasped the rusty handle. As she pulled, the door creaked open, revealing a room hidden beyond a chamber lined with dull, faded photos. The faces of children long forgotten stared back at her, mouths stretched in silent terror. She stumbled back, a scream caught in her throat. Who are you trying to save? She gasped, horrified as recognition coursed through her veins. Every child bore the likeness of Isaac, twisted and shadowed, forever captured in their moment of despair. The scent of damp earth mixed with an acrid bitterness swirled around her as she stood paralyzed by the weight of discovery. In that overwhelming moment, a shadow moved behind her, cold as death. She turned slowly, dread curling in her stomach, not daring to breathe. Why did you come back? Dr. Bates whispered, his figure coalescing in the half-light, the cracks in his face darker with malice. The room dimmed, layers of darkness wrapping around her. Would she remain just another lost name in the unending list of tragedy? Or could she fight to reclaim her son from this nightmare? Sarah, the echoes from the walls grew louder, more insistent, drowning her spirit. She had awakened something, a truth that would forgive no one. In the heavy air, a wordless promise loomed, tinged with horror. The question echoed in her mind, clawing at her sanity. How far was she willing to go for the one she loved? And as the shadows lunged forward, she could only brace for the darkness that enveloped her. What emerged would change everything. The darkness crashed around Sarah like waves, swallowing her whole. The shadows pressed in, black and suffocating, each exhale haunted by the cries of those lost in this cursed place. The flickering match flickered in her grasp, a feeble, dying light against the onslaught of despair. Why do you defy me? Dr. Bates' voice slid through the room, chilling her bones. You don't understand what you were tampering with. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs, panic clawing at the edges of her mind. What do you want? She shouted, the tremor in her voice betraying her bravado. What is this place? Power, Sarah, he retorted, stepping closer, his form coiling within the shadows like smoke. I have harnessed a force greater than you can comprehend. This realm depends on pain. Their pain. And every echo you hear is a reminder of what I can become. The flickering flame illuminated the corners where darkness hid, revealing splintered wood and peeling wallpaper that seemed to bleed with every heartbeat. Desperation surged within her. She had to find Isaac. The photos, those wretched faces, were not just memories. They were warnings. Why did you keep them? She demanded, stepping forward, her voice tinged with determination. The children, what did you do to them? Those who suffer possess the most profound truths. He hissed, his breath cold as grave dirt. In their agony, I uncover the secrets to immortality. Imagine a world where death is but a whisper, where every scream becomes a symphony of power. The shadows around her writhed, as if answering to his promises. The air thickened, constricting around her throat. The whispers grew louder, drowning out his voice. Join us, please, no, Sarah screamed, fighting against the force, pulling her deeper into the cellar's torturous embrace. I won't let you. With a surge of defiance, she struck the match against the wall again, its glow flaring brighter, momentarily casting the darkness away. For a moment, she could see fully a glimpse into the hidden horror that made this cellar its home. A book lay open on an ancient table, inked pages curling like fingers grasping for breath. She dashed toward it, desperate to glean answers. The words blurred as fear clouded her mind. Children of anguish, broken spirits, tethered to pain's stop. Dr. Bates bellowed, his figure melting further into shadow, the jagged features twisting with rage. Ignoring him, she traced her fingers across the brittle page. You can't trap them here forever, she murmured. The truth gripped her like a vice. They're not yours to claim. A scream tore through the cellar, caught between laughter and despair. The shadows shifted violently, swirling as if enraged at her rebellion. You think you can free them? You think you have power here? I have more power than you can imagine. She shot back, summoning the resolve hidden beneath layers of fear. You've only fed on their suffering, but I can turn their pain into something stronger, into hope. The cellar shook with fury, the walls vibrating like a living thing. A low growl emerged, deep and ominous. Sarah stumbled backward, feeling the ground shift beneath her feet. Something was coming, something far worse than Bates. Do you even realize, he whispered, closer than before, his voice slithering with malice, that hope is the deadliest of illusions? With one last, desperate breath, Sarah gripped the edge of the table, eyes darting to the darkened corners, imagining every horror lurking just beyond sight. I want to give in. I will uncover the truth, no matter how painful. Just as she opened her mouth to scream again, icy hands grabbed her from behind, pulling her toward the void that had consumed so many before her. Let go. She fought, but their grip was relentless, dragging her deeper into the darkness, where the wails of the children echoed with newfound urgency. Her heart raced, her vision clouded by terror. What awaited her in that abyss? Would she discover the very thing she sought, or would she become yet another lost soul trapped forever in this nightmare? As the shadows closed in tighter, a piquant whisper slithered through the air. You are not the first to seek the truth, Sarah, and you won't be the last. She clenched her fists, steeling for the inevitable fall into darkness, and a thought pierced through the chaos. Was it too late to save Isaac? Or had she already doomed him in her quest for answers? The icy fingers tightened around Sarah's arms, unyielding and forceful, dragging her deeper into the palpable darkness. She struggled, heart racing, blood pounding in her ears. No longer just shadows. They were bodies, phantoms of the lost, crying for release. Their wails, a cacophony of despair, pierced through her resolve like a blade. Isaac, she gasped, feeling her breath being sucked into the void. Memories of his laughter, his bright eyes fading in her mind. Would she lose him to this madness? The thought ignited a surge of adrenaline. With a primal scream, she kicked backward, her foot connecting with one of the entities, sending shockwaves of pain through her instep. The grip loosened for a split second, just enough for her to pivot and face the darkness, match in hand. She struck it against the wall once, twice, and watched as the flame danced defiantly, illuminating a grotesque tableau of faces twisted in silent screams. Doctor Bates emerged from the shadow, the flickering light casting grotesque shapes across his features. This is futile, Sarah. Pain cannot be fought with mere light. They long for what I can give them. Shut up, she yelled, her voice rising above the lurking terror. With a fierce determination, she brought the match closer to her face. I will free them, every last one. You cannot own their pain. The air thickened, crackling with a sinister energy as Dr. Bates snarled, his demeanor shifting from calculated calm to feral rage. Foolish girl, if you unleash them, you release something far worse than I could ever tame. Ignoring his warnings, Sarah pulled a scrap of paper that had been clinging to the book, a fragile remnant of those who had come before her. The letters printed in despairing loops twisted her insides. The binding ends when the truth of the adored is revealed. What does that mean? She thought, grappling with the words. She felt the shadows shifting again. They were angry now, boiling with energy and fury. It was time to move. Together, she shouted into the blackness, fervent hope lacing her voice. You must fight with me. Bring your pain to the surface. As if answering her plea, the voices escalated, merging into a deafening roar. The darkness writhed, momentarily glowing with the echoes of lost laughter and heart-wrenching cries. It filled Sarah's lungs with dread. Yet there was a spark of flicker of what could be. Join us. The whispers surged forth, an invitation laced with an undercurrent of malice, pulling at her heart. No, she shouted back defiantly. No more suffering. Your time is over. The match burned lower. Shadows swirled, menacing tendrils stretching towards Sarah, ready to snatch her away forever. She risked a glance at Bates, who stood frozen, eyes wild with conflict. Did he not realize the release of pain could bring hope? A thunderous rumble shook the ground, as if the very cellar were alive, and something deep within the earth responded to their struggle. The bindings, what if she could use them to break him, to hold him accountable for his sins? With newfound fervor, she gripped the paper tightly and thrust it toward him. Your power depends on their agony. This must end now. His expression shifted from rage to confusion, a flicker of vulnerability shattering his facade for a moment before the shadows closed in. You don't understand, but she couldn't let him speak. Gritting her teeth, she hurled the scrap into the air, watching it float in slow motion, glowing against the descent into darkness. Let the truth be your undoing. The match flickered and dimmed, almost gone. The whispers reached a fevered pitch. Did she gamble too much, daring to claim the power of the truth? Heart pounding, she fumbled through the table, clinging to her last shred of light. Something shifted in the shadows, and she recoiled, dread pooling in her stomach. What was that? Before she could react, a distorted face turned toward her from the darkness, its hollow eyes staring straight through her. A child's face, impossibly familiar, yet twisted in eternal agony. Help us please, the match went out, plunging her into suffocating darkness, and every shadow echoed with hunger. What more could she lose? As her breathing quickened, a chilling realization dawned. The whispers had started again, and this time they were calling out her name. Sarah. Suddenly, the shadows peeled away like curtained fabric, revealing a classroom filled with empty desks. In the corner, a forgotten backpack lay open, and inside, a picture of Isaac stared back lively and unbroken. Had she awakened something she should not have? Now, uncertain of where she stood, the terror flooded back. Could she still save him, or was he lost forever like the others? The echoes of despair wrapped around her, drawing her deeper into the mystery she had unearthed and into the darkness within. The silence pressed heavily on her chest, a lead weight that threatened to suffocate. Sarah blinked, trying to shake the nightmare from her mind, but she was still ensnared by that child as hollow gaze. The classroom loomed around her, shadows flickering in the corners, and a chill slithered down her spine. "Isaac?" she whispered, her voice quivering as she reached for the picture. His smile, a beacon of innocence, struck her like a viper's bite, filling her with a sudden surge of dread. What had connected her to this place? The walls loomed, rusted and peeling, whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear. Trembling, she stepped closer to the desk, with a picture glowered back at her, as if it held the power of life and death in that sepia-toned smile. The air thickened, tinged with the metallic scent of fear, a scent that made her stomach churn. "Where are you, Isaac?" she breathed. The answer hung in the dark, dread curling her fingers, making her heart pound like a drum. Then came the laughter, not the bright, innocent laughter she craved, but a high-pitched, chilling sound that bounced off the walls. It echoed, taunting her, twisting her stomach tighter. Panic surged, and she turned, scanning the empty room as shadows danced angrily around her. They flickered in mocking rhythm to the laughter, longing to ensnare her in their dark embrace. "Leave me alone," she yelled out, defiance breaking through her terror. The sound of her voice drowned in the laughter, subsumed into a cacophony of despair. Join the others, a voice slithered around her, cold and sinister. It felt as if it wrapped around her throat, squeezing tighter. "They await you know," she screamed, clutching the picture tighter, its edges digging into her skin. "You want tea? Take me." In a desperate act of fury, she hurled the photograph across the room. It fluttered, distorted in the air, until it landed with a soft thud, face down. The laughter stopped. Silence swallowed them whole. Breath hitching, Sarah approached the fallen picture with hesitant steps. She flipped it over and froze. The image had changed. Where Isaac once smiled was now a grim visage, twisted and dark. Shadows curled from the corners of the frame, creeping along her fingers. In that horrifying instant, memories flooded back, snippets of moments long forgotten. Isaac playing in the park, the sound of his bright laughter echoing, their last happy day together before everything shattered. Sarah, the voice was close now, too close. Heart racing, she turned, eyes darting around the classroom, searching for the source. The shadows pooled, forming into shapes, bodies of the lost, writhing in hunger, their silence more deafening than the laughter. Help us, they murmured, voices blending into one sorrowful plea that shot ice through her veins. She staggered back, colliding with the teacher's desk, knocking over a jar of pencils that spilled to the floor like broken bones. "Stop it," she cried out, hands pressed against her head. "I want tea, let you have me or anyone else." The shadows recoiled, swirling as if sensing her rising determination. But a chilling realization crept over her. Who was she really fighting against? The lost souls or the dark puppeteer pulling their strings? Dr. Bates had lost control, but the darkness still sought its own agenda. "Isaac," she moaned, tears brimming in her eyes. "I will find you." But the laughter erupted again, a carnivorous sound, more potent than before, filling the air like a thick smog, suffocating her resolve. The shadows surged forth, reaching, clawing, seeking a way to drag her down into their depths. Was there a way to shield herself from this tide? Just then, a glimmer caught her attention, a thin beam of light slicing through the darkness, a small escape. With a surge of hope, she bolted toward it, adrenaline pulsing wild in her veins. But a shadow darted in front of her, blocking her path. Its shape morphed into something monstrous, a grotesque blend of the familiar and the horrifying, a reflection of her deepest fears. "Not yet," it hissed, drawing closer. "This is only the beginning," Sarah faltered, caught in the web of its gaze, uncertain if she couldn't break free again. There was no turning back now, only the burning question of what it meant for her, what the truth could unleash. What had she awakened? What sinister secrets lay waiting, ensconced in the darkness? As she stared into the void, uncertainty gripped her heart tight. She had to choose to run into the light or confront the fear surrounding her. The darkness pulsed, alive and hungry, as Sarah stood frozen in place. The shadow loomed closer, morphing in the sickly glow of the flickering light. It twisted into a face that she recognized, but the glee was gone, replaced by something sinister. Isaac's features warped into a grotesque mask, eyes wide and empty, yet brimming with a silent scream. "Isaac, no," she cried, fighting the grip of fear, trying to suspend her in that moment. She clenched her fists, fighting back tears. There was no room for despair. She needed to act. Summoning every ounce of defiance, she turned on her heel, bolt towards the door, heart hammering in her chest like a frantic metronome. The laughter swelled, growing louder, wrapping around her like a vine, but she pushed forward, willing her limbs to move faster. The door, a battered relic of a long-abandoned past, loomed ahead, whispering promises of escape. With a trembling hand, she gripped the handle. It felt cold against her palm, an omen that made her stomach twist. Yanking it open, she stumbled into the hall, feeling the shadows claw at her back, hungry for her retreat. The hallway was a maze of peeling paint and flickering bulbs. Each step echoed in the eerie silence, a reminder of the dead that walked here. The laughter faded, replaced by a dreadful stillness that made her skin prickle. What was happening? Where was she supposed to go? "Help us, help us." Muffled cries lingered, lingering in her mind, weighted with agony. She hesitated, torn between finding a way out and the intoxicating pull of the voices beckoning her to turn back. "Isaac!" she screamed, as if invoking his name might shatter the spell. But only the oppressive silence responded, swallowing her words whole. Ahead, she noticed a door partially ajar at the end of the corridor, light spilling out like a flashlight beam into the night. The urge to flee overwhelmed her, but that light felt different. It promised sanctuary, but at what cost? Fighting through the dread, she approached, her breath shallow. As she pushed the door open wide, a chilling draft rolled across her skin. Inside, the room was cluttered, filled with artifacts that looked both ancient and unsettling. Dusty dolls with cracked porcelain faces lined the shelves, their gazes piercing right through her heart. Yet, amidst the encroaching darkness, one object caught her, a photo album, resting on a table dust-ridden but inexplicably untouched. Stepping into the room felt like crossing a threshold into another world, where time folded into on itself. She opened the album, and the pages whispered secrets of the past. Her fingers shook as she flipped through the yellowed photos, each image more disturbing than the last. Pictures of children who had once laughed, smiles now turned sorrowful and hollow, faces sketched with a confession of their fate. Each child bore the same haunting signature, and they looked eerily familiar. Her breath caught, a rock lodged in her throat. Realization dawned, sharp and stinging like a slap. This wasn't just a haunted school. It was a graveyard, where the echoes of lost innocence lingered, demanding recognition. These are the lost souls, the others that had called out to her before. Each photo was a life captured, but at a cost too great. Suddenly, the laughter erupted behind her, a chorus of malign delight, weaving into a haunting spell. "Join us forever," they beckoned, urging her deeper into their world. The chilling sensation of cold fingers brushed her neck, paralyzing her with fear. Glancing back at the door, shadows spilled through the entrance, a dark tide rising to claim her. "No!" She slammed the album shut, heart racing. What held her captive the darkness, or the very memories she had wished to uncover? With a primal instinct, she turned to the window, glancing out into the night. The ground below was nothing but a void, but something moved, a flicker of color, a spark. Was that Isaac? Grasping this hope like a lifeline, she hesitated only for a moment before throwing herself towards it. If this was truly the path to Isaac, she would face whatever lay ahead, but the shadows surged behind her in merciless pursuit. As she leapt towards the unknown, she grasped at what lay ahead and whispered, "I'm coming, Isaac." But deeper in the darkness, something stirred, an unseen force that smiled, relishing in her desperation, weaving her fate closer to its embrace. What awaited Sarah on the other side of the window? Would she find Isaac, or was she being drawn deeper into the monster's lair? The world outside the window was a surreal blur as Sarah plummeted into an abyss. She felt weightless, suspended in time, until an invisible barrier thrust her against the ground with bone-jarring force. Pain shot through her limbs, but panic surged faster. She could hear the shadows growing louder behind her, the laughter thickening into a malevolent cloud. Rolling on her back, she glanced around, disoriented. Dusk surrounded her, the haunting silhouettes of twisted trees casting long, skeletal shadows. It wasn't the street she expected. This was a graveyard, a forgotten patch of land, overrun with weeds and creeping mists, the air heavy with the stench of decay. In the distance, a spectral light flickered, begging her to follow. Isaac? The name escaped her lips, a desperate prayer sent into the night. She pushed herself to her feet, heart racing, fighting against the encroaching despair. But that flicker was fading, flickering like a dying candle. As she stumbled forward, the ground crunched beneath her, remnants of old graves crumbling underfoot. She winced as she caught sight of worn tombstones, names barely legible, some dated from the late 1800s. An oppressive silence blanketed the area, interrupted only by her ragged breaths and an occasional rustle of leaves. Join us, forever the voices returned, echoing around her, suffocating her thoughts. They felt so close, as if the dead were circling her, waiting eagerly for her next move. The air chilled, and a shiver crawled up her spine, sharpening her senses. Desperation fueled her legs, and she sprinted toward the flickering light, crashing through undergrowth. It was then she spotted a dilapidated old chapel, its once vibrant colors now swallowed by time. Rushing to the door, she swung it wide open, and her heart plummeted. The inside shimmered with that same eerie light. She stepped inside, the door creaking ominously as it shut behind her. The chapel was filled with remnants of the past, dusty pews, cracked prayer cards, and a long altar draped in cobwebs. But what caught her eye was a series of portraits lining the walls. Each face was of a child, eyes wide with a mix of laughter and unutterable sorrow. The chilling familiarity hit her again. They all looked like the children in the photo album back in the school. No, she breathed, terror clenching her stomach. A flash of movement from the corner of her eye made her heart race. She turned to see a small, gaunt figure in the corner, its back to her, rigid and silent. "Isaac?" she called uncertainly, her voice trembling. The figure jerked suddenly, turning to face her. What she saw froze her in her tracks. It was a child, but not one she recognized. Its face was expressionless, almost like paper, but there was a vivid, unsettling glow to its skin, as if it were illuminated from within. "Help us," the child whispered, its voice echoing through the chapel, a hollow plea that felt like ice slicing through her soul. "Please help," it extended a hand, pointing toward a door behind the altar, beckoning her closer. The shadows from the corners of the room began to stir, threatening to envelop her. The child's gaze pinned her to the spot, potential recourse spreading through her as panic clung to her throat. "I can't. I need to find Isaac." Suddenly, the walls of the chapel pulsed, a low growl echoing through the space. The darkness around her thickened, its rancid breath drawing closer. There was no time to waste. With her heart pounding, she dashed toward the child, adrenaline overriding fear. But as she approached, the child faded, fading into shadows that wrapped around her like a vice. The very air in the chapel thickened as if the walls were closing in. Just as she reached out, the entity roared, ripping away her grasp. Sarah stumbled back, eyes wide, realizing she was trapped in a web of despair. The echoes of lost voices rose in intensity, swirling like a storm. "You'll never escape. You will join us." With no choice left, she pivoted to the door behind the altar. Would it lead her to Isaac, or would it plunge her into a deeper nightmare? As she flung it open, The darkness surged in a final attempt to reclaim her. What lay beyond that door? Was salvation waiting, or was it merely another trap, crafted by the very shadows that hunted her? The door creaked open, revealing an inky void that seemed to breathe and pulse. Sarah hesitated, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The air was oppressively thick, electric with anticipation and dread. She could feel the weight of countless eyes watching her, waiting for her choice. Time stretched. Shadows lunged forward, clawing at her heels, as they whispered promises of eternal rest. Join us, they slithered through the doorframe, curling around her ankles like serpents, offering a sinister embrace. With sheer determination, Sarah stepped through the threshold, the darkness swallowing her whole. She felt herself fall again, not into a bottomless void, but onto something hard and cold. Gasping, she scrambled to her feet, her pulse racing. She found herself in a narrow passageway lined with damp stone walls. Flickering lights lined the ceiling, casting eerie shadows that danced mockingly. The air felt dense with history, pressing against her skin. She forced herself to move forward, her instincts screaming to turn back. Each step echoed ominously, reverberating through the tight corridor. It twisted sharply, and she felt a chill creep up her spine. It was as if the walls were alive, closing in, taunting her. An unsettling noise echoed behind her, a shuffle, a whisper, then silence. The shadows from the chapel lingered outside, watching, hungry. "Isaac," she called, voice cracking, but only the silence responded. She pressed on, the flickering lights leading her deeper into the labyrinth. The passageway opened suddenly into a small chamber, the air heavy with a suffocating fog. In the center lay a wooden table, stained dark with age and something darker. Surrounding it were more of those ghastly portraits, the children with the same hollow eyes. But now they appeared closer, as if they were just behind the surface of the painting, begging to be released. "Help us," they murmured, a chilling chorus that echoed in her mind. Each voice clawed at her senses, pulling her further into a spiral of despair. Sarah's gaze darted around the room. One wall was lined with dusty shelves piled high with cracked jars and weathered books. Her heart sank at the sight of a small, handmade sign propped against a dusty tome. The sevens: love, rituals, and despair. Suddenly, the room pulsed with life. The flickering lights intensified, casting ominous shadows. In a corner, a small door flew open, producing a rush of frigid air that sent a tremor through her. A spectral figure appeared, glowing with a sickly green hue, revealing itself to be another child, their face twisting with anguish. "Help find Isaac!" Panic squeezed her heart as their mouth twisted into a cruel smile. "You're too late, Sarah. The others, they need you now." With a jolt, Sarah realized she had only moments to act. The figures around her began to move closer, a maelstrom of lost souls, each craving warmth but offering nothing but despair. Before she could think, motions propelled her towards the small door, desperate to escape the grasping hands and hollow eyes. But as she reached for the handle, a loud thud echoed from behind her. The chamber began to close in around her, the laughter of the shadows mingling with the cries of the children, drowning her senses. "Help us, or else," as she swung the door wide. She faced not salvation, but another abyss deeper, darker, the chill of fate pressing against her. Could there be no escape? With desperation surging through her, she leapt into the unknown. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find answers, or spiral into a darkness that would keep her there forever? The darkness sucked Sarah in like a whirlwind, tossing her through a void that felt timeless and endless. She landed hard on a damp floor, gasping for air as her lungs burned from despair and fear. The chamber around her was suffocating, the air heavy with the weight of untold secrets and anguish. She blinked, trying to take in the scene. Ghostly whispers echoed, bouncing off stone walls, drawing her deeper into the gloom as shadows flickered like errant flames. In every corner, twisted remnants of children gazed back at her, their eyes filled with a yearning that pierced through her soul. Help us, they chanted, voices blending into a sorrowful hymn that sent terror racing through her veins. No, Sarah shouted, shaking her head as if the sound could cast the voices back into silence. She stood up, heart hammering. Isaac needs me. I want to leave him in this place. Determination surged, pushing her feet forward. She couldn't give in. She had come too far, faced too much. The shadows clung to her, but with each heavy breath, she felt a flicker of resolve ignite in her chest. No more running. She was here to confront the truth. With urgency in her every step, she moved towards a glowing light emanating from a narrow archway at the far end. Each stride brought her closer to recognition, her memories threading through the fabric of the air the day Isaac had laughed under the sun, the warmth of his small hand in hers. Isaac, she screamed as she entered the archway, leaving the haunting murmurs behind. The light enveloped her, washing over her like a tide of warmth. She staggered through the threshold, breathless, into another world entirely. The sight that met her eyes nearly stopped her heart. She stood in a grand hall drenched in soft golden light, a stark contrast to the shadows that had haunted her. At its center lay a figure, small and fragile, cocooned in radiant light. Isaac, Mommy, he chirped, his voice radiating warmth. Outstretched arms begged her to come closer. Tears of joy and relief twisted together in her chest. Isaac, but as she rushed forward, the walls trembled. Dr. Bates materialized from the shadows, a scowl twisting his once revered features. You dare come here? I'll free my son from your grasp. She shouted, rage pounding like a drum in her ears. You think you can break the bindings they share with me? He laughed, a twisted sound that echoed off the walls. The truth is this power belongs to the anguish I conjure from their pain. Isaac's enchanting light flickered. The portal to salvation swayed between light and shadow. Sarah, he called, fear creeping into his voice, his small form wobbling with unease. Help us, please. No, Sarah screamed, stepping between her son and the monster, arms stretched protectively. You can't have him. Empowered by love, she pushed through the suffocating darkness, focusing on the promise glowing within her heart. I will not let fear steal him away. With every ounce of her being, she ripped her gaze away from Bates, the shadows swirling angrily. Focusing on Isaac's light, she felt an ancient energy pulsating between them. Together, she cried, reaching out her hand to her son. Join me, Isaac. As their fingers brushed, a shock wave surged through the hall, a wave of warmth that ripped apart the fabric of shadow and light, shattering the curse that had lingered for too long. Din and chaos erupted as Bates howled, the shadows recoiling in agony. No, you don't understand, he bellowed, voice splintering, panic spilling from his lips. I am power. Your defiance is futile. But the light surged brighter, and as their hands intertwined, the shadows twisted and writhed, shrieking as they dissipated into the radiant glow. The cries for help from the lost children echoed, their forms taking shape around them, faces that had once been lost, now shining with hope, freed from Bates' bindings. Thank you, they sang, voices lifting like a choir, restored in the glow of salvation. With one final shout of despair, Bates melted into the shadows, the remnants of his tyranny crumbling into dust. You will regret this, his voice echoed, fading into an eerie silence. The hall brightened fully as the shadows evaporated, leaving a space filled with light and warmth. Isaac grinned wide, wrapped securely in Sarah's arms, a flood of relief washing over her. I thought I lost you, she whispered, her heart swelling. I was scared, Mommy, but you came for me. The radiant lights swelled, igniting their surroundings with vibrant colors. Here, in this space, they could heal together, free from the poisons of the past. Let us go home, sweetheart, Sarah said, breath catching with joy as they stepped hand in hand into the sunlight, just beginning to crest the horizon, freeing their hearts from darkness forevermore. As they emerged, The air outside was fresh and bright, filled with the promise of a new beginning, a rebirth from sorrow to hope. And so, the haunting secrets of Willow Creek unraveled and faded, like wraiths dispersing in the dawn's light. Sarah knew, deep down, that darkness would always exist, lurking in the shadows, but she also understood that light, love, and the courage to face the truth would always prevail. Now, dear friends, this is where the journey ends, but a new one awaits. Make sure you subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. And finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Thank you for being part of this adventure.